My name is Madeline Cross. I am 40 years old. And the night my husband locked me inside a service room at his corporate banquet was the night he discovered that hiding someone is not the same thing as removing them. The banquet was held at the Grand Harrington Hotel in Atlanta. 500 guests filled the ballroom. Executives, regional directors, suppliers, clients, consultants, bankers, city officials, spouses dressed like they had been briefed on importance. The event belonged to Sterling Meridian Services, a national facilities and infrastructure company that managed hospitals, data centers, airports, distribution hubs, and corporate campuses across 12 states. My husband, Victor Grant, was president of Sterling Meridian's Southeast Division. He had spent 14 years at the company, 8 as an executive, 4 as division president, 2 telling anyone who would listen that he was ready for the corporate office. That night mattered to him because the parent company was sending its incoming chief executive. No one at the banquet knew who that person was. At least, almost no one. 3 weeks earlier, Sterling Meridian's parent company, Arden Crest Group, had announced that its chief executive, Leonard Shaw, would step down for health reasons. The board said a successor had been selected, name withheld until final transition paperwork and a formal employee announcement. Victor called it ridiculous theater. Everyone in the industry already knows the shortlist. He told me, who 2 internal candidates and some infrastructure guy from Dallas. He never asked whether I knew. I did. The incoming CEO was my father, Jonathan Cross. For most of Victor's adult life, my father had been retired, at least publicly. Dad founded Crossline Industrial Partners when I was a child, sold control in his 60s, served on several boards, then disappeared from daily corporate life after my mother became ill. When she died, he stayed away. He taught 1 seminar a year, read board packages, restored an old farmhouse, complained about streaming television. Victor decided that meant Jonathan Cross no longer mattered in business. I let him. Not strategically. There was simply nothing to correct. Dad really had retired. Then Arden Crest called. Its CEO was leaving suddenly. 2 planned acquisitions were midstream. The board wanted someone who understood decentralized industrial operations and had no need for a 5-year career runway. Dad agreed to serve as chief executive for 18 months. Temporary. Board approved. Embargoed until the banquet because Sterling Meridian was the largest operating company in the group, and the transition announcement was scheduled to be made there before the public release the next morning. Dad told me 5 days before the event. Not because I was part of the company, because Victor was. Conflict, he said. What conflict? Your husband runs a division. You don't manage division presidents directly. I will manage the person who manages him. Still. Exactly. He told Arden Crest's board that his daughter was married to Victor Grant. The board documented it. Dad would not participate in Victor's compensation, promotion, discipline, or any transactions specifically involving him without independent review. That mattered later. At the time, it felt like legal housekeeping. I promised not to tell Victor before the announcement. Then I asked, "Are you going to enjoy this?" Dad looked horrified. Being CEO, being temporarily important again. He thought, more than I should. At least he was honest. I had been married to Victor for 12 years. For the first 7. He seemed proud of my work. I was a structural engineer. Not a glamorous one. I specialized in adaptive reuse and failure analysis for old commercial buildings, cracked beams, settlement, corrosion, water intrusion, load changes people made decades after the original engineer died. I liked finding the point where something that looked stable had begun to fail, Then my mother got sick. I reduced my projects, then stopped traveling. After she died, I never rebuilt the old workload. I taught 2 courses at Georgia Tech, consulted selectively, and spent more time managing a small historic property nonprofit. Victor began describing me as basically retired, then at home mostly. Eventually, to colleagues who never asked, "My wife doesn't really work." The phrase annoyed me. Not enough to fight about it first. Then it became part of his mythology. Victor worked. Madeline hosted. Victor traveled. Madeline stayed home. Victor understood business. Madeline understood old buildings. His executive assistant, Chelsea Wynne, understood how useful that story was. Chelsea had worked for Victor for 3 years. Technically, she was Director of Executive Operations. That title covered calendar, travel, special projects, vendor coordination, executive events, board materials, and whatever else Victor did not want, routed through normal departments. She was 34, confident, sharp, always dressed as if someone might photograph her unexpectedly. For 10 months, I suspected they were sleeping together. Again, no single discovery. Patterns. Victor's hotel folios changed. Chelsea began attending trips that did not require her. Her name appeared in restaurant reservations on weekends. One evening, Victor came home wearing a cologne sample I had smelled on Chelsea at a holiday dinner. I asked him. He laughed. "You are inventing drama because you're bored." That sentence did more damage than the denial. At the corporate banquet, Chelsea wore ivory. Not white exactly. Close enough that I noticed. She stood beside Victor at the entrance greeting senior guests. I arrived separately because I had spent the afternoon at a university review. Victor had texted, "Be there by 7. Dress formal. Don't be late. Not I love you. Not looking forward to seeing you." Instructions. The ballroom doors opened at 7:15. Dinner at 8. Incoming CEO announcement at 9. I was seated at table 2 with Victor, Chelsea, 3 regional presidents, Sterling Meridian's current CEO, and the parent company board chair. At least. That was the seating plan emailed to spouses the day before. When I reached table 2, my place card was gone. Chelsea stood beside my chair. She did not sit. Not yet. Victor was talking to the current Sterling CEO, Andrew Moss. I touched his arm. "Where's my seat?" He looked at me. Then at Chelsea. Change of plan. What change? Chelsea needs to sit here. For what? The transition. What transition? He gave me the look. The one that said, "Do not make me explain business in front of business people." Corporate. I waited. "And where am I?" "Table 17. I looked across the ballroom. Table 17 was near the service corridor. Junior vendors. 2 consulting firms. Several spouses. Not insulting by itself. The insult was the move. "You moved me without asking." Victor lowered his voice. "Madeline. Not tonight." Chelsea smiled. "You'll be more comfortable there." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because tonight is leadership." I almost laughed. "And wives don't count." Her smile sharpened. "I didn't say that." "You didn't need to." Victor said enough. Again. Not to Chelsea. To me. Andrew Moss glanced toward us. Then deliberately looked away. Senior executives are very good at detecting danger and pretending it belongs to another department. I said, "Put my place card back." Victor's face changed. "No." "Why?" "Because when the parent CEO arrives, Chelsea needs to be beside me." "For what? Continuity." That word. Chelsea's future role. I understood. Victor expected a promotion. Maybe not immediately. but he had been talking for months about corporate transformation. If the incoming CEO liked him, he believed he could become Chief Operating Officer or Head of National Operations. Chelsea would move with him. She was not simply taking my chair. She was placing herself inside the photograph of his next job. I said, "You could have told me." "I am telling you. You're ordering me." "Madeline." Chelsea stepped closer. "Please don't make this difficult." I looked at her. "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Her eyes flicked toward Victor. He answered for her. "She is the person keeping this division functioning. There. Public. Not wife. Not assistant. Operational spouse." I looked at him. "And what am I?" he exhaled. "Not now." That answer was enough. I picked up the chair. Not to move it, just to pull it out. Victor caught my wrist. "What are you doing?" "Sitting down." "No. Let go." "Chelsea," said Victor. He leaned close. "You are not doing this before the CEO arrives." "The CEO hasn't arrived." "Exactly." I looked at him. Then something strange happened. He smiled. Not kindly. The smile people use when they have decided the problem is not a person anymore. It is logistics. He said, "Come with me." "No." His grip tightened. "Victor." "Now." I pulled my arm back. He stepped around the table and took my upper arm. Several guests saw. One regional president stopped speaking mid-sentence. Chelsea moved aside. "You're hurting me." "Then stop resisting." He walked me toward the service corridor. Fast? Not running. Controlled enough to look like an angry husband guiding his wife away from a scene. I heard someone laugh behind us. Then another. Not 500 people. But sound travels strangely when humiliation is yours. At the corridor. I stopped. "Let go." Victor did not. He opened a gray door, marked Event Operations, Staff Only. Inside was a narrow service room. Shelves. Volle linens. Audio cases. Extra banquet chair. A utility sink. No windows. I stared. "What are you doing?" "Giving you 5 minutes to calm down." "You cannot be serious." "Stay here until the announcement." I laughed. "Victor." "You're not walking back into that ballroom and embarrassing me." Chelsea is sitting in my chair. "This is not about a chair." "You're right." I tried to step past him. He blocked the doorway. "Move." "No." "Victor." "Madeline. For once in your life, understand that tonight is bigger than your feelings." Then Chelsea appeared behind him. She had followed us. "Of course." She said, "The CEO is 5 minutes out." Victor looked at her. "Go." She looked at me. Then smiled. Not dramatically. Relieved. Like a scheduling conflict had been resolved. Victor pushed me backward. I did not fall. My shoulder hit a stack of padded chairs. Then he stepped out. The door closed. I heard the metal latch move. Click. I stared. Victor, no answer. I tried the handle. Locked. Not deadbolted. The hotel door used a staff keycard. From inside. The handle should have released. It did not. The room was designed as a controlled equipment space. Emergency release sat behind a plastic cover beside the frame. I lifted it. Nothing. A tiny red light flashed. Disabled, I hit the door. Victor. Music swelled in the ballroom. Someone laughed outside. Then footsteps moved away. My phone was inside my clutch. My clutch was on my chair at table 2. I had left it when Victor grabbed me. For 1 second. Panic arrived cleanly. No phone. No window. No one knew where I was. Then my watch vibrated. Apple Watch. Cellular. Battery 23%. I almost cried. I opened messages with shaking fingers. Dad. One sentence. I'm locked in a back room behind the East Service Corridor. Victor did it. Then don't come alone. Tell hotel security. I pressed send. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Dad did not answer. For 40 seconds. Nothing happened. I could hear the ballroom through the wall. Music. Applause. An MC testing the microphone. Then a muffled announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the incoming Chief Executive Officer of Arden Crest Group. Applause exploded. I closed my eyes. My father was walking onto the stage, while his daughter stood locked behind a service door. 5 minutes after my message, the music stopped. Completely. Then I heard his voice through the wall. Not loud. Amplified. Before we begin, I need the hotel to locate my daughter. The room outside went silent. My heart started pounding harder. Dad continued, Madeline Cross is in this building. She has informed me that she is locked in a service room behind the East Ballroom corridor. Another silence. Then hotel security. Please open that room now. No one else should touch the door or the corridor access controls until the camera record is preserved. Victor had tried to hide me from the most powerful person arriving that night. He did not know the man holding the microphone had spent 40 years teaching companies one rule. When a person says they are trapped, you open the door first and investigate the politics second. The door opened in under 2 minutes, not because my father kicked it down, because hotel security arrived with the event operations manager and a master override key. The first person through was a woman named Rosa Martinez, director of hotel security. She did not touch me. Ms. Cross, yes. Are you injured? My shoulder hurts. Can you walk? Yes. Do you know who locked the door? My husband. She nodded once. No shock. No disbelief. Please stay here for a moment while we document the latch and access panel. That sentence steadied me. Document first. The emergency release had not failed mechanically. It had been disabled from the outside using an event control override available to authorized operations staff. That was worse. Someone had not merely shut a door. Someone had changed how the door behaved. Rosa photographed the latch, the override light, the room, the stack of chairs I had struck. Then she asked whether I wanted to step into a nearby office. I said I want to see my father. Of course. The ballroom was completely silent when I re-entered. 500 guests watched. I hated every eye. My father stood on stage beside Arden Crest's board chair. Evelyn Shaw. Victor stood near table 2. Chelsea sat in my former chair. Not anymore. She had risen. Andrew Moss, Sterling Meridian's CEO, stood beside her. Dad saw me. For 1 second, he was not the incoming CEO. He was my father. His face changed. Then he looked at Rosa. Okay, Rosa said. She appears able to walk. Medical evaluation still recommended. Dad nodded. He did not call me onto the stage. Thank God. He looked at the room. We will take a 10-minute recess. Then, the leadership announcement is postponed until hotel security confirms a guest safety issue and Sterling Meridian preserves any related records. Victor moved toward the stage. Dad, he stopped himself. The word had come out automatically. 500 people heard it. The room shifted. Chelsea looked at him. Andrew Moss looked at me. Evelyn Shaw looked at my father. There. The secret was no longer secret. Jonathan Cross. My father. Incoming CEO. Victor understood. Not all at once. First Dad. Then Jonathan Cross. Then Arden Crest. Then the company above his company. His face lost color so quickly that Andrew reached toward him as if he might faint. My father did not react to the word Dad. He said, Victor, do not approach Madeline until she decides whether she wants contact. Victor stared at him. You are, yes. That was all. No speech. No, you locked the wrong man's daughter away. The internet would later invent that line. Dad never said it. He stepped off stage and came to me. Are you okay? No. He nodded. Good answer. That was a family joke by then. My mother used to say fine was a useless medical term. He looked at my shoulder. Doctor after. Now. Dad? Madeline. Rosa interrupted. There's an on-site medic. Compromise. I agreed. The medic documented bruising and reduced range of motion. Likely soft tissue impact. No fracture suspected. No head injury. Then hotel security showed us the corridor footage, not in the ballroom. In a private security room. Present Rosa. Hotel Counsel. Arden Crest Counsel. Sterling Meridian's General Counsel. Andrew Moss. Evelyn Shaw. My father. Me. Victor's lawyer by phone. Victor did not watch with us initially. Conflict. The video began at 8:51. Victor took my arm beside table 2. Chelsea followed. We entered the east corridor. At 8:52. Victor opened Event Operations Room B. At 8:53. He pushed me inside. At 8:53 and 19 seconds. The door closed. At 8:53 and 25 seconds. Chelsea used her event credential on the control panel. That surprised me. Victor turned. She tapped the screen. Then handed the credential back to him. At 8:53 and 42 seconds. The panel status changed from interior release active to event lockdown controlled access. Rosa paused the video. I stared. What is that? She answered. Temporary override used to secure equipment rooms during high-security event transitions. Who authorized Chelsea to have it? Andrew Moss looked sick. She was event operations lead. Rosa continued. The credential can apply lockdown to designated back-of-house rooms. Can someone inside open the door? Not until staff cancels lockdown or fire systems override. So she locked me in. Rosa looked at the screen. She activated the control. Victor had closed the door. Chelsea had turned the closure into confinement. Both. The video continued. At 8:54. Victor and Chelsea stood outside the door. No audio. Victor pointed toward the ballroom. Chelsea touched his chest. He leaned toward her. They kissed. Brief. Clear. Then they walked away. At 8:56. The incoming CEO entered the main ballroom doors. At 8:58. Dad received my message on stage. At 8:59. He whispered to Evelyn. At 9:0. The announcement paused. At 9:1. Hotel security entered the east corridor. At 9:2. Rosa used master override. Door opened. 4 minutes. It had felt like an hour. The video made another thing obvious. Chelsea did not accidentally press the wrong control. She opened the menu. Selected room B. Confirmed lockdown. 2 steps. Intant. Sterling Counsel asked Rosa, does event lockdown generate a log? Yes. She pulled it. User credentials C win Xiops. Chelsea win. Reason field. VIP transition. I almost laughed. VIP transition. My body had been entered into software as a room security problem. Then another log appeared. At 7:23 M. The same credential had requested temporary reassignment of Madeline Grant from Table 2 to Table 17. Event System Notes, per V. Grant Executive Office. The seating move had been entered hours before I arrived. Not improvised. Victor and Chelsea had planned to relocate me before the incoming CEO walked in. That changed the story. Not wife makes scene. Husband overreacts. Plan wife does not belong in leadership photo. Move her. If she refuses. Remove her. If she continues. Lock her away. Sterling's general counsel, Patrice Cole, asked, "Was there any legitimate operational reason to remove Madeline from Table 2? Andrew Moss answered, "No." Was Chelsea required at Table 2? No. Victor had lied about continuity. Chelsea was not part of the formal transition program. The incoming CEO announcement required Sterling CEO, Arden Crest Board Chair, Regional Presidents, Selected Operating Executives. Chelsea had no role. Her assigned seat at Table 6 was intentional. Patrice asked, "Was Victor scheduled for promotion announcement?" Andrew looked at her. "No." My eyes closed. Of course. Another expected future. Victor had been under consideration for a broader role after transition. Not selected. Not promised. He and Chelsea had staged the image anyway. Dad looked at me. I could see the same recognition. Expected approval, acting like present authority. Then Patrice said, "There is a second issue." She opened a file. Sterling Meridian's internal audit team had been reviewing executive hospitality expenses for 6 weeks. My stomach dropped. Not again. Not because the story repeated. Because power often leaves receipts. Andrew continued, "The review is unrelated to Madeline, and began before Jonathan's appointment." Good. That mattered. Then he looked at my father. "One of the flagged cost centers is Victor's executive office. Dad said I need to leave." Everyone stared. He continued, "Conflict. My daughter is involved. I should not receive details beyond what the parent board requires to preserve risk." Evelyn Shaw nodded. "Agreed." My father walked out. That was the moment I realized the banquet had changed for him too. He had been 5 minutes away from taking a microphone as incoming CEO. Now his first act was to leave the room where his son-in-law's future would be discussed. Authority can begin with absence. I stayed. I was the person locked in the room. The security facts involved me. The expense audit did not. Patrice separated them. "We'll finish guest safety evidence first. Audit remains with the independent committee." Good. Victor's attorney joined by video. Chelsea's attorney had not yet been retained. The hotel preserved corridor cameras, door control logs, credential history, event seating edits, staff messages, radio traffic. The ballroom program resumed without the leadership announcement. Awards were shortened. No music between presentations. Guests left early. The incoming CEO identity had already leaked because Victor called him Dad. Arden Crest issued its public statement at 10:30 instead of the next morning. Jonathan Cross appointed interim chief executive for 18-month transition term. One paragraph later, Ms. Cross has disclosed a family relationship with a Sterling Meridian division president and will follow board-approved recusal procedures in matters involving that executive. The market had the conflict before gossip could define it. That was deliberate. Arun sprezece cinci sprezece. Sterling Meridian placed Victor on paid administrative leave. Not fired. Not demoted. Leave. Chelsea's event access credentials were suspended, pending review. Not terminated. At midnight, I sat in my father's hotel suite with an ice pack against my shoulder. Dat honderd me water. You knew Victor might be promoted. I knew he wanted to be. Did you know Chelsea was part of that? No. Did Arden know? I stared at the skyline. Then, did you know he thought I was basically a housewife? Dad looked at me. He once described you as retired. I laughed bitterly. I'm 40. I told him that. What did he say that you chose home life? I looked at him. Did you correct him? Dad paused. I said your work was your business. That was fair. Still, he continued, Madeline, I knew he minimized what you did. I did not know he was humiliating you. Would you have done anything? No. The answer surprised me. Nothing. I would have asked whether you wanted help. Same thing. No. He sat across from me. You are 40. I am your father. Not your board. That hurt. Then helped. I understood. He could not solve a marriage by being richer than the husband. That would only create another form of control. Then he said, but locking you in a room is not a marital disagreement. I am going to pretend not to notice. I nodded. Police if you want. Company, not mine to decide where Victor is concerned. You're CEO. Exactly. He looked tired. Tonight was supposed to be easy. I almost laughed. Your first mistake. He smiled. Then, get some sleep. I did not. A 2:15 a.m. My watch buzzed. Victor. I had forgotten he could still message me there even though my phone was across the room. One line. I didn't know he was your father. I stared at it. Not I'm sorry I locked you in. Not are you hurt, I didn't know he was your father. That was the sentence that ended the marriage. Because it told me exactly what Victor regretted first. Not what he did. Who saw it? The first audit summary reached Sterling Meridian's Independent Risk Committee at 9 the next morning. I did not receive it. Neither did my father. That was appropriate. I learned the contents later through the parts disclosed in Victor's employment proceeding and our divorce. The audit had begun with a question about executive hospitality. Sterling Meridian ran a decentralized expense system. Division presidents had wide discretion. Clients expected sports tickets, private dinners, hotel suites during conferences, airport cars, holiday gifts, executive retreats. The Southeast Division spent more than $8 million a year on relationship development. Most of it legitimate. Victor generated hundreds of millions in revenue. No board panicked over a steak dinner. The problem was a rebate account. Sterling used a travel and event company called Blue Lantern Hospitality. Blue Lantern negotiated hotel blocks, conference space, car services, and event production. Volume created credits. If Sterling booked enough business, Blue Lantern accumulated room upgrades, airline credits, event rebates, unused deposits, promotional nights. Those credits belonged to Sterling. They were supposed to reduce future company expense. Chelsea administered them for Victor's division. Internal audit noticed the Southeast Division had unusually high gross event spend, but unusually low credit utilization. Question: where were the credits? Blue Lantern's ledger answered. Some had been used under names not appearing in Sterling's expense system. Chelsea Wynn. Victor Grant. 1 weekend in Charleston. 2 nights in Miami. A private villa extension after a client retreat in Sea Island. A luxury car in Nashville. A spa package in Scottsdale. A suite at the Grand Harrington during the banquet. Not my room. Chelsea's. Total identified value $74. $600 over 18 months. Not millions. Enough. Then jewelry. Not purchased directly with company money. Worse, in a more technical way. Blue Lantern offered a year-end supplier rebate if Sterling's Southeast bookings passed a volume threshold. Cash option, $120. 000 credit against future events. Victor chose $75. 000 event credit, plus a partner recognition package supplied by a luxury retailer. Blue Lantern's sales representative wrote per VG. Recognition component to be delivered directly to CW for executive team retention. CW. Chelsea Wynn. The package included a $28 000 watch, A16. 000 diamond, pendant. A designer travel set, Chelsea wore the watch to the banquet. Internal audit asked HR whether Chelsea had an approved $44,000 recognition award. No. Compensation committee. No. Tax reporting. No. Gift policy exception. No. Victor's office classified the package supplier relationship benefit non-cash. That classification avoided ordinary compensation review. Not necessarily hidden from finance. Mischaracterized. Then, the audit found apartment expenses. Chelsea lived in Atlanta. So did Victor. Sterling nevertheless paid 6 months of a furnished 2-bedroom apartment downtown under an executive mobility program. Reason: temporary relocation for national transformation work. Chelsea had not relocated. Her permanent home was 9 miles away. The apartment was 3 blocks from Victor's corporate club. Building entry logs later showed both of them there repeatedly. Victor's defense was operational. Chelsea worked late. The division was preparing for transition. The apartment served as a project site during confidential planning. There were meetings there. Real uns. 2 analysts. A consultant. 1 lawyer. Several evening work sessions. Then the analysts stopped attending. The lease continued. Mixed legitimacy. Again. The apartment cost $6,900 per month. 6 months. Plus parking and housekeeping. $47,000. Not a secret penthouse. Still company-funded space, used partly for an affair. The audit report avoided moral language. It said executive mobility benefit appears inconsistent with relocation policy criteria and requires compensation. Tax and business purpose review. Then came the flights. Victor and Chelsea traveled together often. Most trips were real. Hospital clients. Data centers. Airport contracts. Supplier meetings. Regional leadership. On 8 trips. The business ended before they returned. 2 extra nights. 1 extra weekend. A resort extension. A detour through Napa after a San Francisco client meeting. The company paid. Chelsea's calendar called several extensions, relationship decompression. No one in internal audit knew what that meant. Victor later said it meant debriefing after sensitive client negotiations. A hotel folio disagreed. Couple massage. Wine tasting. Private dinner. The audit's preliminary personal use estimate grew to $146. Ling, ling, ling. Still small relative to division revenue. The problem was approval. Every item had been approved by one of 3 routes. Victor himself. Chelsea using delegated executive office authority. Or a finance code pre-approved for client development. No independent review because no single charge crossed the division president's escalation threshold. Pattern. That was why internal audit existed. The board risk committee placed Chelsea on administrative leave. Not because she was Victor's mistress. Because she administered benefits from which she personally benefited. Conflict. Victor's leave expanded from 5 days to indefinite pending review. The company froze. Blue Lantern credits. Not Blue Lantern itself. The vendor had not necessarily done anything wrong. That distinction mattered. Then Blue Lantern volunteered records. Its account executive, Melanie Frost, had asked Chelsea twice whether personal name redemptions should be invoiced back to Sterling. Chelsea replied, VG approved as exec recognition. Melanie asked, need payroll? Chelsea, no. Supplier benefit. Melanie. Okay, if finance signed off. Chelsea executive office is finance sign-off for this pool. False. Executive office could approve allocation, not tax treatment. A subtle distinction. Enough to create risk. Blue Lantern had relied on Chelsea's representation. The vendor's own compliance team reprimanded Melanie for not verifying. No one got to say the customer told us. Then Patrice Cole, Sterling's general counsel. asked a question unrelated to money. Why did Chelsea have authority to place a hotel room into event lockdown? The answer led to event governance. Victor had appointed Chelsea executive transition coordinator for the banquet. No formal job change. Just a role in the event management system. That temporary role gave her backstage access. Seating edit privileges. Restricted room control. Arrival notification. VIP movement tools. Why so much? Because the hotel copied a permission template used for security managers during prior leadership events. Chelsea's role inherited it. The event team never removed the room lockdown permission because nobody expected an executive assistant to use it against a guest. The hotel blamed template design. Sterling blamed role assignment. Victor blamed the hotel. Chelsea blamed Victor. Everyone had a piece. Rosa Martinez, hotel security director, wrote, "The system functioned as configured. The control failure was granting an event coordinator a security permission unnecessary to her role, combined with no requirement to enter a safety reason before interior egress restriction. That sentence made the situation less cinematic. No secret key. No sophisticated kidnapping. Bad permission. Wrong person. Wrong tool. Bad decision. Technology turns authority into buttons. Someone still decides who gets the button. The hotel's system vendor issued a patch within 48 hours. Any room control mode that disabled ordinary interior release now required security role credential, seconde confirmation, and automatic notification to hotel security. No event coordinator could activate it alone. Rosa also changed hotel policy. Service rooms occupied by people could not enter controlled access mode except under documented security or emergency conditions. A banquet had produced a software update. I almost found that funny. Then, Sterling discovered something worse in the seating system. Chelsea had changed more than my chair. 7 spouses of senior regional executives had been moved away from Table 2 and Table 3. Replaced by Chelsea. 2. Transformation consultant. A private equity advisor. A vendor executive. A communications strategist. 2 of Victor's preferred regional managers. Victor's transition picture had been staged. He wanted the incoming CEO to see a specific coalition around him. Not family. Not existing hierarchy. His future team. The parent company announcement was supposed to be the moment he displayed people who supported him. Consultants who built his plan. And Chelsea beside him. He had no authority to select the incoming CEO's dinner circle. He did anyway. Again. Act first. Formalize later. Evelyn Shaw. Arden Crest's board chair. Saw the seating edits. She asked Andrew Moss, "Did Victor believe he was being promoted tonight?" Andrew said. "He believed he was under serious consideration." Was he? Yes. For what potential enterprise chief operating officer after Jonathan's transition began? My father had not known Victor was the leading candidate. Hekuzao. The succession committee handled it. Victor's record was strong revenue, margin, contract retention, turnaround of 2 troubled branches. He had a real chance. No promise. Chelsea had prepared a draft org chart anyway. Victor Grant Enterprise COO. Chelsea Wynn Chief of Staff. Office of COO. 3 regional presidents reporting to Victor. Transformation Office absorbing procurement analytics. Executive events reporting through Chelsea. The org chart was dated 2 weeks before the banquet. No board approval. No CEO approval. No HR approval. At the bottom, effective upon JXC announcement. JXC. Jonathan X. Cross. My father. Victor did know the incoming CEO's initials. He did not know the identity. Arden's board used initials in confidential transition planning. Victor apparently assumed JXC was an external executive. He and Chelsea had planned to use the announcement to make their own future look inevitable before the new CEO could question it. Evelyn read the chart and said, "This is not succession planning. This is preemption." The word entered the board minutes. Victor's lawyer later hated it. The Independent Succession Committee immediately removed Victor from consideration for Enterprise COO pending investigation. Not permanent. Pending. That was the first career loss. And my father had nothing to do with it. He had recused before he even knew Victor was a candidate. That mattered so much, I almost wished Victor could understand it. He did not. His first formal response accused Arden Crest of allowing a family matter to contaminate succession. The board answered with dates. Victor's candidacy review removed by Succession Committee at 9:40 a.m. Jonathan Cross absent. Conflict counsel present. Hotel footage independently authenticated. Internal audit predates Jonathan appointment. Event permissions documented. Dates are boring. Boring is hard to argue with. Victor tried anyway. 3 days after the banquet, Chelsea hired a lawyer. Her name was Simone Avery. No relation to anyone in my family. That sentence sounds unnecessary until you live through enough corporate stories. Simone contacted Sterling Meridian and requested preservation of Chelsea's employment rights. A non-retaliation framework. Access to her personnel file. And a separate interview process from Victor. Victor called Chelsea 6 times that morning. She answered none. Then he sent messages. Chelsea later produced them. "Victor, we need to stay aligned. Victor, do not let Patrice turn event mistake into deliberate confinement. Victor, we both know Madeline was out of control. Victor, tell them room was meant as cooling off area. Victor, call me. Victor, Chelsea." One phrase mattered. Cooling off area. There was no such designation. Event operations room B stored linens and audio cases. Hotel records said so. Victor was beginning to build a softer story. Not we locked her in. We gave her a place to calm down. Chelsea's response came 6 hours later. Through counsel. No direct contact outside counsel. Victor stopped. The company's forensic review expanded. Not into every corner of his life. Into the areas where the same pattern might matter: delegated authority, executive benefits, succession planning, event permissions, and operational reporting. That last category surprised everyone. Why operational reporting? Because one internal auditor reviewing Chelsea's role found she had access to a dashboard called Summit Score. Summit Score ranked Sterling Meridian divisions for uptime, client retention, safety incidents, margin, response times, and contract renewals. The Southeast Division had ranked first for 2 consecutive years. Victor used the ranking constantly. In speeches, recruiting, bonus discussions, his COO candidacy, at the banquet. He was supposed to receive the President's Reliability Award before the incoming CEO announcement. That award never happened. Not because Dad stopped the banquet permanently, because Andrew Moss quietly pulled it from the program during the recess. Why? The audit team discovered Chelsea had edited incident classifications, not raw system logs. Categories. A power transfer delay at a hospital campus became client-side infrastructure event. A chilled water outage at a data center became planned, adaptive maintenance. A missed response time target at an airport became security access delay excluded. Each reclassification had documentation, some legitimate, some aggressive. The review centered on one hospital incident, St. Gabriel Medical Center. 11 months before the banquet, a generator control fault during a storm caused a delayed transfer in one research building and 2 administrative floors. No operating rooms lost power. No patients were harmed. Critical clinical systems transferred normally. Still, Sterling Meridian's contract required reporting any backup transfer exceeding a threshold. The delay 21 seconds. Contract threshold 10 OLF NZ. The site engineer, Leah Morgan, filed it as a critical reliability exception. Chelsea changed the division dashboard category after receiving a message from Victor St. G, not critical plant. Chelsea contract, says campus event, over 10 sec counts. Victor clinical critical transferred. This was admin, research. Chelsea Leah flagged full contract. Victor use, client infrastructure, exception. We are not losing annual ranking over a non-clinical relay. Chelsea need Andrew approval. Victor no. Regional interpretation. The category changed. Client report. The hospital received a detailed incident report containing the 21-second delay. No concealment from customer. That mattered. But internally, Summit Score excluded it. Why the award? Bonuses. Succession. Victor's division stayed number 1. The President's Reliability Award carried a $3 million division bonus pool, executive recognition, and weight in succession review. The review found 6 questionable exclusions. Not hundreds. No patient harm. No fake product. A performance management issue. Then Leah Morgan produced an email. Leah to Victor, I understand client impact was limited, but metric definition says any contracted transfer failure over 10 sec. If we want a clinical-only metric, change definition prospectively. Victor noted. Leah, is it being changed? Victor Chelsea will handle. Leah, that wasn't my question. I liked Leah immediately. Victor replied, don't turn an internal scorecard into theology. No threat. Dismissal. Leah escalated to her regional operations director. He said Victor owns the interpretation. That was false. No one person owned it. The Corporate Reliability Office did. But Victor was president. People confused title with interpretive authority. Again, the audit committee sent the 6 incidents to Sterling's chief reliability officer. 3 exclusions were upheld. 2 were deemed ambiguous. 1 sent. Gabriel should have counted. Corrected Summit Score Southeast Division fell from 1st to 3rd. Still strong. Not fraudulent collapse. The bonus pool, the company had already paid most employee bonuses. Andrew Moss refused to claw them back from field teams. They did the work. Good. Victor's executive award component had not yet been paid. Frozen. Chelsea's performance bonus was frozen. The President's Reliability Award was reassigned. Not to another division immediately. Cancelled for the year. Why? Because the review found the metric definitions themselves were inconsistent across regions. Arden Crest had inherited a bad incentive system. That was the parent company's failure. My father learned about Summit Score only after the independent committee determined it affected enterprise risk broadly enough to brief him. He asked, who designed the award? Andrew answered, Corporate Performance Office. Who approved Leonard? Previous CEO. Board. Comp Committee. Dad looked at Evelyn Shaw. She nodded. Arden's board had rewarded divisions for a metric that invited interpretation at the edges. Not Daniel's invention. Not Chelsea's. They exploited ambiguity. The company supplied it. Dad's first enterprise-wide reform as incoming CEO was not firing my husband. It was suspending the Summit Score ranking until definitions could be standardized. Victor called that proof of overreaction. Field managers called it relief. One wrote anonymously in the employee forum, maybe now we can fix outages without arguing whether they ruin someone's trophy. That comment embarrassed the corporate office. It should have. Then zanked. Gabriel called its chief operating officer. Dr. Erin Caldwell had seen press about Victor's leave. She requested assurance that the hospital incident report had not been altered. Sterling showed her raw logs. Client report. Internal scorecard classification. Audit correction. Aaron's response. You told us the truth. You told yourselves a prettier version. That sentence reached my father through client risk reporting. He wrote it on a yellow pad. I saw it later on his desk. The company kept the hospital contract. But, St. Gabriel required quarterly reliability reviews for 1 year. No client loss. Real consequence. Then the review found a second operational pattern. Victor had been using an exception process called executive recovery. When a client relationship was at risk, division presidents could approve up to $250. 0 inches discretionary service credits or emergency remediation without ordinary pricing review. Useful. A hospital cannot wait 2 weeks for committee approval when an air handling failure is disrupting a floor. Victor used executive recovery 43 times in 2 years. Most appropriate. 7 involved clients also attending luxury hospitality events, coordinated by Chelsea. Internal audit asked whether service credits were being used as relationship sweeteners rather than operational remedies. 4 were legitimate. 2 debatable. 1 was clearly outside policy. A commercial developer complained about a delayed building controls upgrade. No service outage. No safety issue. Victor approved a $180,000 credit under executive recovery. 2 weeks later, the developer's CEO joined Victor and Chelsea at a resort golf weekend paid through Blue Lantern credits. Correlation is not bribery. The customer had a real complaint. The credit may have been commercially reasonable. The golf event had many attendees. Still, wrong process. Victor could have approved a negotiated commercial concession through sales. He used emergency authority because it was faster. Again, a tool designed for urgency became a shortcut, X's Evan Dodd. The board risk committee added it to the case. Victor's defense remained consistent. I made decisions for the business. Often true. The question was, who else was allowed to review them? That became the difference between leadership and unilateralism. Chelsea's interview lasted 2 days. She admitted the affair. 11 months. She admitted using Blue Lantern credits personally, accepting the watch and pendant, using the apartment, staying on extended trips, changing seating, activating event lockdown, editing summit score classifications at Victor's direction. She denied believing she was unlawfully confining me. Her explanation: Victor said Madeline was having a breakdown and needed to stay out of the ballroom until the CEO arrived. My lawyer later asked me how that felt. Predictable. Chelsea said she activated the room lock because Victor told her, keep that door secure until I send someone. Was there audio? No. Text 1. Atopt cincizeci și patru. Immediately after lockdown, Chelsea room secure. Victor good. Come back. That supported her account of direction. It did not erase her choice. The investigators asked, why didn't you contact hotel security if you believed a guest was having a breakdown? Chelsea looked down. Because I didn't think she was dangerous. Then why lock the room? Because Victor wanted her kept away. Clean. That was the truth. Then why? Chelsea said. Because he thought Jonathan Cross would see Madeline and treat him like family instead of as an executive. My stomach dropped when I learned that Victor did not know Jonathan was my father, but he feared any incoming CEO seeing his wife beside him would make him look domestic. Less singular. Less corporate. He wanted Chelsea there because she signaled work. I signaled family. The irony was almost too perfect. He hid his wife to look more professional in front of the CEO. The CEO was her father. But beneath the irony was something uglier. Victor had started treating my existence as reputational clutter. Chelsea continued. He said Madeline makes him look like someone still tied to old life. What old life before Sterling? Before executive level. I had been there before Sterling. Before the suits. Before the speeches. Before Table 2. I knew the young engineer who called me after every interview. The man who practiced presentations in our living room. The man who once drove 6 hours to look at a cracked courthouse beam because he wanted to understand my work. He had not merely fallen in love with someone else. He had begun curating me, out of the version of himself he wanted, promoted. That hurt more quietly than the affair. It also explained why Chelsea's insult worked. She believed I had no status because Victor had trained everyone around him to see me as evidence of a less important life. The audit did not care about that. Our divorce would. The police report came on day 4. I had not decided whether to make one. Rosa Martinez made the decision smaller. The hotel has to document intentional confinement whether you pursue charges or not. Why guest safety? She gave me the incident number. Then said, "You can speak with the detective or not." I did. Detective Marcus Hill met me at my lawyer's office. My lawyer was Claire Benton. Different Claire. I had hired her the morning after the banquet. Marcus asked ordinary questions. "Did Victor push you into the room?" "Yes." "Did he tell you to stay?" "Yes." "Did you try to leave?" "Yes." "Could you?" "No." "Did you know Chelsea activated the lockdown, not until video?" "How long were you inside?" "Approximately 9 minutes from door close to release." I had thought 4. The camera timeline showed 9. My message came after several minutes of trying the door. Trauma compresses and stretches time. "Did you fear you would not be released for a moment?" "Did Victor threaten to hurt you?" "No." "Did he strike you?" "No." "Did he take your phone?" "No." "Did he know you did not have it?" "Unknown." "Did he intend to confine you or only remove you from the ballroom?" That was the legal question. I answered honestly. "He told me to stay until the announcement." Then he closed the door. Chelsea locked it. Marcus wrote, "The case did not become kidnapping. The internet wanted kidnapping. The statute and evidence were narrower. Potential unlawful restraint. Potential battery from the push. Potential conspiracy, probably not in the dramatic sense. Prosecutors reviewed. No immediate arrest. Victor appeared voluntarily with counsel. Chelsea too. The hotel footage did most of the talking. Victor's statement, "I intended to remove my wife from an escalating public conflict. I did not direct Chelsea to disable interior release." Chelsea's statement, "Victor told me to keep the room secure until he sent someone." No audio. One text, "Room secure." Good. Come back. The prosecutor eventually filed misdemeanor charges tied to restraint and physical contact. No dramatic felony. That disappointed social media. Fine. I cared about the record. The corporate review did not wait for criminal resolution. Sterling Meridian's independent committee had a different standard. What happened? What policies applied? Could Victor continue leading people? The committee interviewed 32 employees. Not about my marriage. About Victor's management style. The answers were mixed. That mattered. Victor was not universally feared. He had loyal employees. A regional director said he makes decisions when everyone else is waiting for permission. An account executive. He saved my client after corporate wanted to walk away. A facilities manager. Victor will get on a plane at midnight if a hospital needs him. An engineer. He remembers site details. Nobody at his level should remember. Chelsea. He made people feel like normal limits were optional if the outcome was good. Leah Morgan. He did not ask me to falsify the St. Gabriel report. He simply treated the internal definition as something he could reinterpret because he disliked the result. A finance director. He never told us to hide personal spend. He told us certain executive benefits were legitimate. And people stopped asking because he was the president. Andrew Moss. I rewarded him for moving fast. I did not build enough friction around where speed became unilateral authority. Again. The institution. Victor's best defense was his performance. Southeast revenue had doubled in 4 years. Client retention 94%. Employee turnover below company average. Safety record strong even after corrected classifications. Margins highest among large regions. He had built something real. The committee could not dismiss that. Then it asked, does high performance reduce the seriousness of misuse of authority? No. Does it affect remedy? Maybe. That question divided the directors. One wanted termination. One wanted removal as president, but retention in a non-supervisory strategic role. One wanted a 6-month final warning arrangement. The fourth, independent chair of the committee, to refuse to state a view until the client interviews finished. Victor's lawyer proposed a settlement. Victor would step down as Southeast president, repay disputed personal benefits, waive the reliability award, complete management remediation, and become senior strategic advisor for 12 months. No personnel authority, no expense approval, no event control access, no role in my father's reporting chain. In exchange, Sterling would classify separation from presidency as voluntary transition, not misconduct. That mattered to Victor's reputation. The committee considered it. My father did not know the terms. He was recused. I learned later, the deal almost happened. Then Leah Morgan's personnel file arrived. She had challenged the Saint Epser WWW. Gabrielle Classification. 3 months later. Victor rated her technically strong, needs better alignment with business context and executive judgment. Sound familiar? Not identical to Tessa. Different company. Same phrase. Business context. Leah's prior rating exceeds expectations. After the dispute, meets expectations. Bonus impact $18. Ling ling ling. Promotion delayed. Victor denied retaliation. His notes showed other concerns: slow project closeout, difficulty with client-facing communication, too many escalations. Some documented before Saint Liked. Gabrielle. Not invented. Then an email from Chelsea VM wants Leah held at current level until she demonstrates less rigid approach to metrics. VM. Victor Grant no. VG. The email used Victor. Chelsea to HR partner Victor wants Leah held at current level until she demonstrates less rigid approach to metrics. Says she confuses compliance with operations. HR need examples beyond St. Gabriel. Chelsea will send. The examples later sent included 2 real project delays, 1 difficult client email, 1 escalation. Enough to justify concern. But the timing and wording connected the performance decision to her challenge. The committee wrote, retaliatory motive cannot be established as sole cause. But executive response to controlled disagreement improperly influenced personnel evaluation. That sentence killed the strategic advisor settlement. Why? A non-supervisory advisory role sounds safe. But keeping a powerful founder-like executive inside a company can still influence people who know his history. If employees believe challenging him can affect careers. Removing his formal authority may not remove practical authority. The independent chair changed her vote. Termination. 3-1. The committee recommended Victor's employment be terminated for cause and on ADS. Still not the final decision. Sterling Meridian's board had to act. Andrew Moss recused from the vote because his own oversight was under review. My father recused as parent CEO and father-in-law. Arden Crest's 2 board-appointed directors recused because one reported to my father and one had participated in the succession process. That left 5 independent Sterling directors under the company's governance structure. Victor's lawyer objected. You're removing everyone who knows the business. The committee chair answered, we are removing everyone whose independence would be reasonably challenged. The 5 directors reviewed the record. Hotel video. Event logs. Expense findings. Blue Lantern. Apartment. Travel. Summit score. Leah. Client interviews. Victor's response. Chelsea's response. HR records. Then Victor appeared. 4 hours. He did not deny the affair. Did not deny the room. Did not deny the benefits. He argued context. I did not lock Madeline in a cell. One director said no. You put her in a service room and left after another employee disabled interior release. I did not tell Chelsea to disable release. Did you tell her to keep Madeline away? Yes. Did you check whether Madeline could leave? No. Did you return? I intended to after the announcement. How long? 5 minutes. You don't know that. No. Another director asked, why not ask hotel security to handle a disruptive guest? Because she was my wife. Silence. That answer mattered. Because she was my wife. So normal rules felt unnecessary. Again, a director asked why was Chelsea seated at table 2? She was supporting transition. Was she assigned a role by corporate transition? No. Why did you believe you could assign one? I was division president. That is not the same as enterprise transition authority. Victor looked tired. No. Another, why did you approve the supplier recognition package retention? Why no HR review speed? Why classify the apartment as mobility project need? Why didn't the project team continue using it? They did initially. Why did the lease remain after that? No one terminated it. Who could Chelsea? Who benefited? She did. Who supervised her? I did. Then summit score. Victor defended St. Mon. Gabriel strongly. I still believe the metric was badly designed. The reliability officer had said the same, but under the definition then in effect, should the event have counted? Victor paused. Yes. Did you know Leah believed that? Yes. Did you use your authority to override? I interpreted. Did you have interpretive authority? Victor did not answer. Finally, the committee chair asked Mr. Evu. Grant. What do you believe the common issue is across these findings? He said. They are being aggregated to make normal executive discretion look sinister. The chair waited. Anything else? No? That answer decided it. Not because he failed to confess. Because after 4 hours, he still saw each boundary as an obstacle to outcome rather than a separate grant of authority. The board voted 4-1. Victor was terminated as president and employee of Sterling Meridian. He kept earned salary, vested retirement, vested equity, shareholder rights in any Arden-related holdings he personally owned. He lost unvested performance awards tied to cause provisions, the Reliability Award, the COO candidacy, executive benefits, access. He did not lose everything. He lost the job. At 6:20 that evening, Andrew Moss called me. He was not required to. He said, the board acted. I knew from his voice. He's out, yes. I sat at my kitchen table. No triumph. No champagne. I looked at the empty chair across from me. Victor's. Then was Dad involved? No. At all no. Good. Andrew was quiet. Then Madeline. I owe you an apology. The Banquet. You didn't lock me in. I saw Victor grab you before he left the ballroom. And I looked away. There. The ordinary failure. I told myself it was marital. I said nothing. I should have asked security to intervene before it reached the corridor. Would you have, if I were an employee? He paused. Probably. That was enough. He continued. I am sorry. I believed him. That did not undo it. It made the record accurate. Sometimes that is the beginning. Chelsea's employment ended 2 weeks later. Not the same day as Victor's. Sterling's committee separated her case. She had activated the lock, used Blue Lantern benefits, accepted unapproved supplier recognition, used the apartment, edited summit score classifications, participated in the affair, changed banquet seating, accepted an unofficial future role. She also followed Victor's directions as her supervisor, kept records, cooperated, did not control the division, and had asked HR about formalizing some benefits before Victor told her he would handle them. That last fact mattered. 8 months before the banquet, Chelsea emailed HR. Victor has asked me to take on transition office work beyond current role. Is there a temporary assignment or housing policy if late-night, on-call presence becomes regular? HR answered, could consider interim assignment. Need job scope. Manager justification. Comp, review. And relocation facts. Chelsea forwarded it to Victor. Chelsea. Need paperwork if apartment happens. Victor, I'll handle through project. Chelsea, HR says, role scope. Victor. After transition is confirmed. There. Chelsea had asked. Victor postponed. The apartment began anyway through executive mobility. That did not make her blameless. She accepted it. But once again, Victor occupied the space between future formalization and present benefit. Sterling terminated Chelsea for policy violations and misuse of event control authority. It did not classify the entire value of the apartment or travel as theft. The company performed tax corrections, required repayment of clearly personal portions, recovered the supplier watch and pendant because they had never been validly awarded. Chelsea returned both. She kept her ordinary personal jewelry. The internet claimed security took diamonds off her at the office. False. The items were surrendered through counsel. No scene. Chelsea asked to meet me. I said no, then changed my mind 2 months later. Why not forgiveness? I wanted one answer. We met in a conference room at Claire Benton's office. Counsel nearby. Chelsea looked different without corporate polish. Simple blue dress. No watch. No executive badge. She sat across from me. I'm sorry. I said, I don't know what to do with that yet. Okay. Why did you lock the door? She swallowed. Because Victor told me to. That's not enough. I know. Why did you obey? She looked down. Because I had spent 2 years becoming the person who solved whatever he put in front of me. I waited. Flights. Clients. Staffing. Dinner seats. Vendor problems. HR problems. His schedule. His moods. Me. She looked up. Eventually, that answer was honest. She continued. He told me you would try to ruin the transition if you saw me at the table. Why? Because he said you hated that he trusted me. Did you believe him? Yes. Did he tell you I was unstable? Not clinically. What did he say? That you created scenes when you felt ignored. I laughed once. How many scenes had you seen? None. Then why believe him? Chelsea took a long time. Because believing him made my life make sense. That answer was better than any excuse. She continued. If you were unreasonable, then I wasn't helping a married man replace his wife in pieces. My throat tightened. Replace in pieces. Not leave. Not divorce. Chair. Trip. Confidence. Status. Private conversation. Future role. Pieces. Did Victor say he was leaving me? No. That surprised me. Never. He said your marriage was mostly companionship. I almost smiled. Did he say he would divorce? No. What did you think would happen? Her eyes filled. I thought eventually the company would move him to corporate. I would move too. And reality would force the conversation. Reality. Farce. No one chooses. Circumstances do it. That was another version of Victor's pattern. Delay formal decisions until momentum makes them look inevitable. I asked, did you want my life? Chelsea looked shocked. No. My husband. She flinched. Yes. His job. I wanted my own job. Then why sit in my chair? She exhaled. Because I thought that was what my own job looked like. That answer stayed with me. Chelsea had confused proximity with authority. Like everyone else. Sit beside Victor. Become visible. Take on work. Receive benefits. Be treated as future chief of staff. The chair represented a role no one had approved. She wanted recognition. Victor gave her symbols instead of structure. Then she said I shouldn't have locked you in. No. I knew you could not leave once I hit the control. That mattered. You knew. Yes. Why didn't you stop? Because Victor looked at me and said keep her there. There. No ambiguity. Chelsea's attorney had not wanted her to say that in corporate interviews without context. Now she said it to me. Why tell me? Because I kept saying I didn't understand the safety function. She looked at her hands. I did. I felt anger arrive cleanly. Not explosive. Specific. Then you made a choice. Yes. Good. She looked confused. Good. Now it belongs to you. Not Victor. Not the hotel. Not the template. Her choice. She nodded. We ended the meeting. No hug. No sisterhood. I wished her a life in which she did not have to borrow a chair to feel important. I did not say that. Some thoughts are too polished to be kind. Victor's criminal case resolved 4 months after the banquet. He admitted misdemeanor unlawful restraint and offensive physical contact under a negotiated disposition. No Yale. Probation. Behavioral intervention. No unwanted contact with me outside legal channels during the divorce. The prosecutor asked me whether I wanted to speak. I did. Not about my father. Not the company. I said, Victor did not lock me in the room because he wanted to hurt me physically. He locked me in because he believed my refusal was a problem he was entitled to solve. That was enough. The judge asked Victor, did your wife ask to leave? Yes. Did you permit her? No. Did you understand she had the right to leave? Victor paused. Not in that moment. The judge said, that is the problem. The sentence was not dramatic. True. The corporate consequences were already larger than the criminal ones. That was later's probable. Different purposes. My divorce filing came the next morning. Victor had expected it. He did not contest the marriage ending. He contested the narrative. His first proposed agreement included, the parties acknowledged that the marriage deteriorated over time and that the banquet incident occurred during a period of unusual professional pressure. Claire Benton looked at me. Delete. Victor's lawyer countered. The parties make no admission regarding causation of marital breakdown beyond irreconcilable differences. Fine. I did not need the divorce decree to explain my life. Property was straightforward compared with public assumptions. Victor earned more. I had family wealth. Neither fact meant the other owned it. My father's assets were not mine. Arden Crest was not mine. Sterling Meridian was not mine. I owned half our marital home subject to ordinary rules. Retirement assets, my consulting practice. Investment accounts. Certain inheritance from my mother held separately. Personal property. Victor owned vested sterling Arden compensation. Investments. Retirement. Some premarital equity. His share of the home. No secret trust containing the company. No surprise voting block. That simplicity felt almost rebellious after so many viral stories about hidden wives. The difficult issue was executive compensation. Victor lost unvested awards when terminated for cause. He argued the value of those lost awards should not reduce the marital estate unfairly. My valuation expert argued some were contingent and never guaranteed anyway. Lawyers fought. I stopped listening after the third meeting. Then, another issue appeared. My engineering work. During discovery, Claire found a folder in our shared home server. Sterling risk, M. I assumed M meant Madeline. It did. Inside were 11 documents. Years earlier, when Victor first became regional president, he used to bring operational problems home. Not confidential client data. General systems questions. How should a building services company think about failure? How do you distinguish incident severity from embarrassment? What makes teams hide bad news? I loved those conversations. I wrote diagrams on napkins. One weekend, I built him a simple decision model. 3 columns: stop, stabilize, explain, stop unsafe movement, stabilize the system, then explain cause without changing the record to make the story prettier. Victor used the framework in an internal leadership presentation. Eventually, Sterling adopted a version called SSE. Stop, stabilize, explain. I never knew. The folder contained my original sketch. His PowerPoint. Later corporate training. My name disappeared after version 1. Not stolen intellectual property in any meaningful legal sense. Ideas between spouses. General concepts. No patent. No contract. Still, emotionally, it hurt. Victor had spent years telling people I did not understand operations. He had used my language to teach them. Claire asked, "Do you want to raise this in divorce? Only if there's economic relevance." There isn't. Then probably not. I agreed. No lawsuit. No retroactive co-founder fantasy. I printed the original page. Not as evidence. As memory. Stop. Stabilize. Explain. Then I noticed something that made me laugh until I cried. The night of the banquet. My smartwatch message had done exactly that. Stop, Dad. I'm locked in. Stabilize. Tell hotel security. Explain, preserve camera. I had used my own old framework without remembering. I wrote it. Victor had locked me away while his company still taught a version of my words. That was enough recognition. I did not need a plaque. Later. When Arden Crest reviewed Sterling's incident culture, Dad saw the SSE framework. He recognized my handwriting in an archived slide. He called. "Did you create this? Part of it? Why is Victor's name on the training? He adapted it. Do you want me to?" No. He stopped. Good. No, what? No credit correction. No announcement. No investigation. Why? Because I was his wife, helping him think. Dad was quiet. "You're sure?" "Yes." Then. "But stop calling me retired." He laughed. Deal. The story did not need every contribution converted into ownership. Sometimes the repair is knowing you were there. Jonathan Cross's first 90 days as CEO became less glamorous than the Banquet announcement. He inherited 2 acquisitions. A stalled ERP implementation. A la board dispute. An underperforming Western division. 3 lawsuits. 1. Cybersecurity remediation program. And a son-in-law scandal. He was not allowed to touch directly. That last limitation irritated commentators. A Business Channel host asked Evelyn Shaw, "How can shareholders trust Mr. Sadie Cross to lead a group where his own daughter is involved in an executive misconduct case?" Evelyn answered, "By watching whether the governance structure works without him." Good answer. Arden Crest published the recusal protocol. Jonathan could receive enterprise-level risk summaries. He could not direct Victor's employment process. Could not negotiate Victor's separation. Could not alter evidence access. Could not participate in any compensation appeal. Could not influence my divorce. Could not ask Sterling staff for information unavailable to the parent board. That last one mattered. Dad was curious. Painfully curious. He asked me once, "Do you know what Chelsea said about the apartment?" "I know what was in the disclosed review." "Anything else, Dad?" He sighed. Right. Boundaries are most convincing when they frustrate the powerful person too. The broader Arden review found a parent company problem. Sterling Meridian was not the only subsidiary using decentralized executive discretion systems. Blue Lantern-style credits existed elsewhere. Executive recovery-style emergency spending existed in 4 operating companies. Temporary event permissions were managed locally. Succession planning varied by division. Summit score was uniquely Sterling's, but other subsidiaries had similar rankings. Dad could have announced a giant compliance program. He did not. He hated giant compliance programs. Instead, Arden created 3 enterprise rules. First, no person may approve a benefit, expense, or vendor credit from which they or a close personal relationship directly benefits without independent review. Second, temporary access rights expire automatically with the event, project, or assignment that justified them. Third, no performance measure used for executive pay can be reinterpreted retroactively by the executive whose compensation is affected. Simple. Not sufficient for every situation. Clear. Sterling added its own rules underneath. The hotel patch remained the hotel's quota. No empire building. Dad's first company town hall happened 6 weeks after Victor's termination. Employees expected him to mention the banquet. He did not. He spoke about decentralization, operating authority, customer trust, and why parent companies often make subsidiaries worse by pretending every decision belongs at headquarters. Then he said, authority should live as close as possible to the work, but it must have a visible edge. I heard myself in that. Maybe Dad heard Mom. Maybe everyone borrows language. He continued. When the edge is unclear, seniority fills the gap. That is dangerous because titles start answering questions the policy never gave them. That was the whole story. No family reference. Good. Afterward, a Sterling employee asked, "Does this mean division presidents will have less discretion?" Dad answered. Some. In areas where conflicts or safety require it. Then aren't we slowing operators down? Sometimes. The employee looked surprised. Dad continued. Speed is a benefit. It is not a constitutional right. I wrote that down. He was getting annoyingly good at this. Arden's board eventually asked Dad to stay beyond 18 months. He said no. That shocked them. Why, I asked. Because temporary means temporary. You enjoy it. Very much. Then stay. He shook his head. I told them the job was to stabilize transition and prepare a successor. Who not decided. You don't know I have candidates. Internal stop. I smiled. Now, I was the curious family member. Roles work both directions. Sterling Meridian appointed a new Southeast president 3 months after Victor left. Her name was Naomi Brooks. She had run the Carolinas region and spent 20 years in facilities operations. Victor disliked her. Not personally. Professionally, he thought she was too cautious. Employees thought she was boring. Her first division meeting lasted 42 minutes. No music. No slogan. No awards. She showed top 10 client risks, staffing, reliability corrections, open claims, cash, Blue Lantern remediation. Then she said, I don't need us to be number 1. I need our numbers to mean the same thing in every room. Leah Morgan told me about that line years later. At the time, I knew only that Naomi's appointment made no headlines. That was healthy. Then a real test arrived. Sterling's largest Southeast customer, Atlas Data Infrastructure, announced a competitive rebid. Contract value $280 million over 5 years. Victor had built the relationship. Personally, he knew Atlas's founder, knew its chief operating officer, had negotiated the previous renewal over 2 dinners and a fishing trip. People inside Sterling panicked. Victor is the account. Naomi disagreed. No person is an account. Atlas's procurement team requested service history, response metrics, transition controls, leadership structure. It also asked whether Victor could participate in final negotiations as an advisor. Sterling said no. Not because the company wanted to erase him, because he no longer worked there and confidentiality controls had changed. Atlas's COO, Michael Trent, called Victor privately. That became known because Victor disclosed it before answering substantively. Good. His lawyer advised him. He told Michael, I can't speak for Sterling. Call Naomi. That was perhaps the first evidence outside court that Victor understood his old role was gone. Michael called Naomi. Atlas still pushed. Victor understood our sights. Naomi answered. Then he did his job if the knowledge stayed in our systems. Good sentence. Sterling assembled a team. Leah Morgan handled reliability. Operations Director Carlos Bennett handled site staffing. Finance handled pricing. Naomi handled executive relationship. No mistress. No founder. No single hero. They nearly lost. Atlas received a lower bid from a competitor. Sterling's corrected reliability score looked less impressive than the old first-place ranking. Victor's defenders said, C. Then Atlas's technical team reviewed raw incident data. Sterling's reporting after reform was clearer than competitors in Wall, and defallibly a natter. The saint. Gabriel correction was included voluntarily. Atlas asked, Why show us a hospital incident unrelated to our account, Naomi said. Because we're asking you to trust our classifications. That mattered. Atlas renewed Sterling at slightly lower margin. Not a victory parade. A profitable contract. Employees exhaled. The institution had transferred a relationship, built partly by Victor without pretending he had never mattered. That was mature. Victor heard through industry news. He sent Naomi a one-line note. Congratulations. Atlas is a hard one. She replied, Your groundwork mattered. Thank you. No reconciliation. Accurate history. That was healthier than erasure. The reliability award never returned. Instead, Sterling created a scorecard without rankings. Divisions received reliability distribution. Client retention. Safety. Financial performance. Control exceptions. No number one trophy. Regional leaders complained. Competition motivates people. So does clarity. The company kept performance bonuses, but stopped creating one headline rank that made every edge case feel like a threat. Employee bonuses became partly team-based, partly multi-metric. Less exciting. Harder to game. Leah was promoted the next year. Not because she became whistleblower royalty. Her record improved. Her project closeouts improved. Her client communication improved. The company corrected the part of her prior rating influenced by Victor and reviewed her on current performance. She became Regional Reliability Director. When someone called her brave at a panel, she said, I was irritated. I liked that. Courage is often irritation with paperwork. Andrew Moss, Sterling's CEO, did not escape consequence. The board reduced his annual incentive for oversight failures. He remained CEO for 1 year. Then retired on the schedule that had already been planned. No forced resignation. His successor was Naomi No. Naomi remained Southeast president. Sterling hired an external CEO named Samuel Reed. Samuel came from airport infrastructure. His first month, he visited the Grand Harrington, not for a banquet, for a contract meeting. Rosa Martinez, hotel security director, recognized the Sterling logo and joked, Keep your executives out of my service rooms. Samuel laughed. Then asked to see the new room control system. Rosa showed him. Temporary permissions. Automatic expiry. Interior safety notification. Sterling later adopted a similar access model for its own secure maintenance spaces. Another lesson crossing institutions. The back room had become a systems design case. I hated that at first. Then appreciated it. Pain can generate useful controls without becoming the sole meaning of your life. My shoulder healed in 3 weeks. The door took longer. The first time I stood outside a locked service door after the banquet, I froze. It happened at a university auditorium. I was teaching an evening seminar on structural failure. The AV technician stepped into a storage room, and the door shut behind him. Normal. 2 seconds. He opened it from inside. My hands were already cold. That was when I stopped pretending the banquet was only embarrassing. I started therapy. Dr. Ruth Bell. She did not ask me to tell the entire story on day 1. She asked, "What does the door mean now, that someone can decide I don't get to leave?" And before a door, good answer, for months. I noticed exits everywhere. Restaurants, lecture halls, hotels, parking garages. I sat near aisles. At one client meeting, a conference room door locked automatically when the presentation began because the building used privacy mode. I stood up instantly. "Open it." The client looked confused. My colleague did not. She opened it. No explanation. That helped. The strange part was how little time I had actually been confined. 9 minutes. People think duration determines seriousness. Bodies disagree. 9 minutes can teach a nervous system a rule. Closed door equals loss of choice. Therapy taught it another rule. Closed door can be checked. Handle. Exit button. Ask. Leave. Choice reintroduced through ordinary actions. My divorce became final 11 months after the banquet. No trial. Victor and I reached agreement through mediation. The home sold. Neither of us wanted it after everything. Not because Chelsea had been there. She had not. Because the house had become a place where we both lived inside different narratives. Victor thought I had withdrawn from life. I thought he was only busy. We had stopped comparing notes years before. The sale proceeds divided under ordinary marital rules. My mother's inheritance remained separate. His vested equity was valued and divided where marital law required. His lost unvested compensation was mostly treated as contingent and not fully marital. Neither side got everything. Good? The hardest negotiation was not financial. Professional non-interference. Victor wanted a clause preventing me or my family from taking action that could harm his future employment. Claire Benton laughed. "Your father cannot sign your divorce." Victor's lawyer reworded, "Neither party shall solicit or encourage adverse employment action against the other." I understood the concern. My father had enormous professional reach. So did people who knew Victor. I agreed with a narrower version. Neither party will knowingly use private marital information to interfere with the other's lawful employment or professional opportunities, except for truthful responses required by law. Regulation, reference policy, or safety obligations. Fair. It protected Victor. It protected me. Then I asked for reciprocal language. Victor could not represent himself as having access to Jonathan Cross, Arden Crest, or my family for professional purposes after divorce. His lawyer objected. "Why is that necessary?" I looked at Victor. He said, "It's fair." That surprised me. The clause read, "Neither party may state or imply ongoing authority to speak for, influence, or obtain non-public access through the other party or their immediate family absent current written authorization." Boring. Beautiful. Victor signed. That sentence closed more than the marriage. At mediation, we took one break together. No lawyers. Victor stood by the window. I sat. He said, "I still don't understand how I became the person who locked you in a room." I looked at him. "You didn't become him that night." He flinched. "What does that mean?" "You practice smaller versions." He waited. "You moved conversations, changed definitions, used urgency, decided what I would accept, told yourself you'd fix things later." He looked down. "Did I control you that much?" "Not every day." That's not an answer. No. He looked at me. I continued. You weren't some tyrant walking around the house giving orders. That's why it took me so long to see. He nodded slowly. I loved that you trusted my judgment. I did. I thought that was love. Sometimes it was. That answer surprised both of us. Trust is not always exploitation. The problem was what he did when trust ended at a boundary. He said, "When you said no at the table, I felt like you were exposing me." To whom? Everyone. Because Chelsea was there? Because I had already told everyone she was part of transition. There. Reputation. I couldn't let you make that look false. It was false. He closed his eyes. Yes. Then I thought if I got you out of the room, I could fix it after the announcement. I laughed softly. Of course. What after? He understood. Everything later. Apology later. Paperwork later. Compensation later. Metric correction later. Marriage later. I know. He looked tired. Therapy is annoying. Good. He smiled. That was the last time we talked as husband and wife. We signed 2 hours later. The judge entered the decree 3 weeks after that. I returned to Madeline Cross. Not because Victor's name was contaminated, because Cross was mine before him and felt like mine again. I changed passport, bank accounts, professional license, university records, insurance. No dramatic identity reclamation. Mostly forms. Forms are underrated. They turn intention into records. My father retired from Arden Crest exactly 18 months after taking the CEO role. No extension. The board named Evelyn Shaw No Peephouse. Evelyn remained chair. The new CEO was Daniel Cho, formerly head of industrial operations. Internal candidate. Not connected to me. Dad's final all hands lasted 12 minutes. He said, when I came in, people kept asking what I would change. The better question was, what should still work after I leave? Then he thanked teams. No mention of Victor. No mention of me. At the end, he said, temporary authority is useful, partly because it reminds the person holding it that the chair is not theirs. Chair. I smiled. Different object. Same lesson. After retirement, Dad returned to the farmhouse. He called me every Tuesday, usually to complain about contractors. One morning, he said, I need your engineering opinion. Professional personal. Paying you or my daughter. That's not currency. He laughed. I drove out. A barn beam had cracked. Real problem. We spent 3 hours examining it. Dad kept suggesting shortcuts. Sister the beam. Add steel. Hide the crack. I said, we need to know why it moved. He sighed. Structural engineers are philosophers with invoices. Correct. The cause was a foundation settlement near one post. Not catastrophic. Repairable. I realized halfway through that this was the first problem Dad and I had shared in years that had no governance committee. Wood. Load. Water. Soil. Ordinary. I loved it. He asked, do you miss Victor? I thought. Sometimes. He looked surprised. You're allowed. I know. Do you miss the marriage parts? He nodded. That was the correct answer for him, too. Dad never said I always knew. He did not. He liked Victor once. So did I. That made his restraint more meaningful. He did not rewrite history to make himself wise. The Grand Harrington invited me back 1 year after the banquet. Not ceremonially. Rosa Martinez wanted me to review the renovated backstage corridor as part of an accessibility and egress consultation. I almost declined. Then said yes. The hotel had changed door control hardware, added visible interior release indicators, removed the ability for event credentials to apply controlled lockdown, and added camera coverage without placing cameras inside private rooms. Rosa showed me room B. Same gray door. New handle. Green light exit always active. I stood outside. "Want to go in?" she asked. "No." Then I changed my mind. "Yes?" We entered. Same shelves. Different chairs. Utility sink. Smaller than memory. Of course. Rosa stayed near the door. I walked to the back wall. Turned. Then opened the door myself. Ease. I did it again. Rosa did not laugh. Third time. I did. Testing, something like that. I left. The room became a room again. That night, I slept better. Chelsea sent me one email 2 years after the banquet. No apology. She had already apologized. Subject, for what it's worth. Madeline. I manage operations for a healthcare nonprofit now. No executive assistant work. No event privileges. Last week, our executive director asked me to use her credential to approve a vendor because she was traveling. I said no. She was annoyed. "I thought you might appreciate that." "Chelsea," I stared. Then replied, "I do." That was all. People can learn without returning to the people they hurt. I liked that. Victor learned differently. He did not return to large company executive leadership immediately. For a year. He consulted on facilities strategy. Then a private equity-backed building services company hired him as chief commercial officer, not CEO. The company's announcement included Mr. Five Lee's end of year OSID. Grant will lead growth and client strategy. Operational approvals. Compliance. And personnel matters remain within established functional structures. That sentence was unusually specific. Industry people knew why. Victor accepted the role. He stayed 3 years. No scandal. Revenue grew. Then he left voluntarily and became an independent advisor. I saw none of this because I monitored him. Industry news is small. People told me. Eventually I asked them to stop. He has a life. I said, "So do I." That worked. The person who interested me more was Leah Morgan. She invited me to speak at Sterling's Reliability Conference 3 years later. I declined at first. Conflict. She laughed. "Your father is retired. Victor is gone. You're not a vendor." History. History isn't a procurement category. Fair. I agreed. My talk was on structural failure and reporting. No personal story.